Hey guys, welcome back to episode 3 of Break the Mould. We're really excited today. We're joined by Liam Doe, who's the founder of our Bond Store, a club working space in Southampton that Liam's going to tell us all about. But Liam, good to see you, mate. Welcome to Break the Mould.
Welcome, Liam.
Good to see you.
It's good to be here.
Good to see you. So look, Liam, let's dive straight into this, okay? So, right, can you... Look, we're going to talk about our Bond Store. We're going to talk about... Because the thing is, whenever we sit down for conversation... Like, it lasts about 3 to 5 hours.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the time now, so we can
smash
smash
this
this
through.
through.
45 minutes of this. But what I want to do, everyone knows you're from Bonsai in Southampton, okay? Anyone watching this outside of that ecosystem, we'll talk about that, what that is. But what I really want to do is rewind right back to the start, understand what's that journey you've been on, what have you learned along the way that's made you make the decisions that you've made, if that makes sense. And some of those might have influenced you in a positive way, some of those negatively, but if we're going to step into a time machine, how far back are we going in time where you think, right, this is my first experience of actually, I suppose, going on my business journey? When is that for you?
I think for a lot of people in our club is sport and things like that. There's some sort of drive. Yeah, I think so.
What sport was yours?
Football. Yeah. So I was at Southampton until I think it was about 14.
Yeah.
So
football club?
10. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. I wasn't very good. Well, I managed to stay there.
I
I think from 10 till 14. I think from memory. But yeah, so I think it's the competitive nature of sport, and I think everyone's the same as that, really.
Have you always been competitive?
Yeah, I think so. I think I'm an only child, and I think that that treats you to shout a bit louder than other people, maybe. And I think that I was introduced to sport because just to socialise and meet other people. But yeah, I think from playing sport, like the desire to win and stuff like that is probably from sport, really.
Yeah.
Just back on that, I'm thinking the last couple of ones that we've done, everybody said the same thing. It's that competitiveness, I think, drives you to kind of stand out. And I think that might be, I'm starting to think that's one of the key defining things for being an entrepreneur, is that competitiveness.
I think it defines the difference between somebody that is suited to the corporate world to somebody, because I think the metric of money or success or whatever, I think it's kind of a scorecard, and I think most people would agree with that. So I think early on, when anyone that's successful in anything that they do, there's a desire in some way to win, and that kind of sounds proof. But yeah, I think that's probably about where we got to and stuff.
So with 14, so if we fast forward 10 years, 24, 25, where are you in life? What are you doing?
Got into sales, so went to university, did a kind of communication design degree. Taught me about marketing and brand and that sort of stuff, but it became quite technical. So lost me a little bit. Did a dissertation on kind of why people buy stuff and things like that, and then got a job at MFI selling furniture at weekends and got commission for that, and that was like...
MFI, what does it ring a bell?
Oh God, you guys are showing your age, aren't you?
Is it the carpet place?
No, they used to make flat pack furniture. So my job was...
What is it like OG IKEA?
Yeah, it was, but it's kind of the only...
The British IKEA.
It's kind of the only...
MFI.
Yeah. They used
to get your cabinets.
So it was like, I was the bed seller, so I was really good at selling beds, because they were kind of... So you could design kitchens and stuff like that. And they used to hate me in there because I used to go in there at weekends. So the kitchen designers, they kind of had a trade, which is kind of strange, really, kitchen design. But they had a trade, so they were messing around with these kitchen designs. Some bought, some didn't, but big numbers. And I'd be sweeping up at weekends, just selling beds, bedside tables, dining tables. And yeah, it was really good, and I was really good at it. And I paid myself for uni doing it. I kind of earned a full-time wage, really.
You essentially did pretty well, didn't you? Now, by the way, when you were earning that money there, like, because I remember you saying it's almost like, was it more than full-time wage for like part-time hours? Was that right?
Yeah. So I think I earned like 1 year about 15 grand, right? Which is like, I'm 42 now, so that would have been 20 years ago. So that'd been today's money, early 20s, and I was working a Saturday and a Sunday half a day. And it was, I just loved it. I really enjoyed it. And what I didn't understand was when I was going in there, like, some of them have been there all week, so they're kind of a bit downtrodden. But in my mind, all those people out there, every time I saw the dining room table, it was like £7 or £6 or something like that. And I was like, why are you even sat in here? Like, this is mental. Why aren't you out there trying to sell stuff to earn money? And I think I loved it, and they obviously selling furniture is a pretty shitty job. So they not for everyone selling furniture, but for them it was just a job. Go in, earn what you can.
Yeah.
But for me, that opened my eyes to sales and commerce, I suppose, really.
Yeah.
And that was a bit I really enjoyed.
Yeah. And when you were making that money, by the way, what was your like? Were you motivated by the money? Were you was the job giving you a buzz?
Was a scorecard.
What was it?
The money was a scorecard. Yeah, so it was about, I had a number 58, and I was a salesman 58, and I'd go in on a Sunday morning, because it used to reload from a Saturday, and to be up the top was the most important thing, because there were people in there that were a lot older than me, a lot more experienced, but to be beating them was the most important thing. And I was always really obsessed with like, as a kid I was always obsessed with counting my money and stuff like that, and I was quite tight really. I wasn't really into spending it, but it was about the measure of what you could kind of do with that money. And then I suppose I went into recruitment, and I was shit at recruitment really, and I didn't enjoy it.
Because if you're at MFI, you're dealing with people from all walks of life all the time. You're obviously in something right, because they're buying the furniture from you, unless you're just an order taker. But like in the recruitment, it's still very people orientated.
I think
what changed.
I think with recruitment, it's a slightly different dynamic. I think it's with when you're out selling, it's a relationship building exercise. With recruitment, there's a lot of early effort in building your book, and there's an awful lot of cold calling. And I just used to hate the idea. Maybe it was just I wasn't getting enough wins, so maybe the idea of rejection too often. And maybe
confidence.
Yeah, I think so. And also as well, I looked at those around me, and it felt like I was so far off getting to where they were on the leaderboard that I lost interest.
Makes sense.
And I think I fucked up my A levels, and that was, I think, because there were people so many layers above me that I just turned it off. I didn't have enough wins in it, and I think with recruitment, I think recruitment gets a really bad name, because we work with a lot of recruitment businesses, and it's good money. Well, it is for the top 2%, the 98%, and when you actually get under the mark, those people are incredibly resilient as a career. And I think a lot of the industries, they look at them, when you're making six figures in recruitment, you really earn that. Like, I mean, it's a really demoralising job, because of the reputation of the sector. And I think I probably jumped out really. I lost too early, and I thought, no, this isn't for me. And there's a logistical problem. We was in London, so the problem with being up in London, away from my mates and stuff like that, there was other things kind of going on. But yeah, and then I got a job in for a kitchen franchise business. So the biggest kitchen company in France. I was there for 3 years. And then I was back. What I loved about that job was I was back out on the road meeting people, got my own car and things like that. And and I had the shitty pinstripe suit.
Have you got a photo of that somewhere?
Yeah, I must have.
Yeah, if there is a photo, you'll see it on the screen now.
and that I really enjoyed, and that was interesting, because that was the bit what got me really into business.
Yeah.
Because we were the biggest kitchen manufacturer in France. So we were a household name. I mean, I blagged that job because I told them I sold kitchens at MFI. I didn't, but they kind of seen something. And it paid shit, so I think they just wanted to get someone young that they could kind of get on the cheap. And then for the first 18 months of that, I was out and about protecting the brand with the franchises. So are they advertising right? And that was brilliant, because that got me into kind of leases and all the other bits and pieces that go with small business management. And I wasn't trained in it, and the business managed me from afar really. But I loved that, and to be honest, that was slightly different, because the first 12 months didn't have any like success at all really. I was muddling through, but I think it was the journey of the learning, the scorecard of actually have I learnt that, and then I started to draw on stuff from my design degree, where how people buy stuff, what their buying habits are like and stuff like that, because then it enabled me to help the franchisees. And the other challenge, I think we said earlier that, like, out of 12 franchisees that I was managing, 8 or 9, I'm going, my God, what the hell are you doing owning a business? Because you just, and what organically happens in any industry is the person that's really good at the job ends up owning the business. But that's not necessarily how you become a good business owner.
Yeah.
The best salesman doesn't necessarily make the best business owner. So these people all were ex-kitchen salespeople that had a bit of money or had been left a bit of money, and they thought they could create these things. So I started to realise then about businesses and how you negotiate leases, how you set your marketing plans up and stuff like that. But I was kind of learning on the job. And then the final year, it really kind of kicked in and clicked home. And the other thing it taught me was with franchises, you don't let them slip out of the franchise. You stick to the product. You stick to what you know. We had a lot of them that wanted to sell 7 or 8 products because that's what customers want. And I learned very quickly that, no, you do what you do. And you do it really well.
What, did you expand that a few times and the sales just didn't come in? Or
no, so when I first turned up, I had a broken franchise patch that was, and the reason it was broken is they had outlets of other suppliers, and when they weren't doing very well because they didn't manage it very well, they basically went to another supplier, changed things, kept changing and tinkering. And my most successful one was the one that stacked. It was one that I brought on. The problem was a franchise, you know what it's like, it takes 2-3 years to build a business. Yeah. So let's say I bought one on year 1, it didn't really bear fruit till 18 months later. But once I'd had the template that just do this, and based on what we learnt there, it'll keep replicating. And that was good. And then because I was so excited, pumped then about, and I was like 26 then, I was so pumped about owning my own business. Yeah. And I was shooting down the M27 because I was doing like 35,000 miles a year, shooting down the M27. And my dad, who I've got a mixed relationship with, run a very small groundworks business, and he'd had some success for 18 months too, and he was like, right, I'm off. I've made a few quid. I've had enough. And my business partner now, he was doing some consultancy work for my dad at the time. And he said, look, I've got this other person who was chooping back from London in a decent job, and he was doing my dad's work on the side. I've got him involved. And I said, well, don't do anything stupid. Let's come down, let's have a look. And for my relationship with the kitchen companies, let me see what the numbers look like. And they were good, really. Yeah. So I got a bank loan, which we didn't. Me and my wife got a bank loan. I had to convince her that it was the right thing to do, or girlfriend at the time. And then got a bank loan. And then a week later, he had his money from myself and my business partner now, Richard, and off he went, and he bought a place abroad. And it was kind of just me and him. Wow. And that wasn't the deal. The deal was we'd all manage it together. And I think
but just there on that, like, that must have been quite tough for you both, like, emotionally, because of like the relationship who that was with, but then also like professionally, you think, like, are we in a shit here?
I think when you're young and you haven't got any responsibilities and you got no kids or anything like that, I was so pumped about owning my own business.
Do you get lost in like the hype of it, do you think?
Yeah, it was just emotionally driven. And I think a lot of people, when they start business, is emotion first of all, and then you think about the numbers. You try and force the numbers in.
Yeah,
so to make it work.
That's really true.
Yeah. So for me, it was just about this is better than driving 30,000 miles. We haven't really got any money anyway, and so we might as well give it a spin. And the idea of getting loans and stuff when you're young doesn't really affect you. It's just like, just get a loan, 500 quid a month. Yeah. Don't worry about it. It's not that it's 500 quid times 70 months. And me and Richard, I always remember it was sat there, me and him, and it was like, right, my dad's not coming back, he's staying abroad. And he said, well, how are we getting on? And we looked at the numbers and said, well, let's just give it a spin. We're both in now. The money's kind of what we've invested's gone. Let's work with what we got. And we took that really grew quickly. So I don't know, let's say we're doing, I don't know, 500,000 quid or 200 quid, whatever the number was. But then we took it up to about 5 million turnover in 3 or 4 years. But grew it way too quickly, and didn't grow any assets or do any of the basics that I would advise now. But we did it, and we were that good at the end where it was really fundamentally broken. We kind of kept it going really for 18 months, 2 years on fumes, really. And that was interesting because I look back at what I didn't appreciate then was the value of money, and it was so much a scorecard in a game that I didn't really care. Yeah. And we built a team of young people around us who didn't really hold us accountable because they just were on the journey. And then the recession hit, 2007, or as people know it now, but actually in our industry it didn't hit us till about 2010. And we had a 12-month period where, because what we also did was we bought my dad out with the money we'd made over a short period, which left us, as the business continued to go up, we needed more money to fund it. And we, naively, because we thought we were so amazing, when it downturned, we suddenly went, hang on a minute, that money we had before, we've got it now. And so it was really difficult. And then we basically lost it within about 8 months. We made all the staff redundant. And at the time, what we thought about was we had a great set of people that worked for us, and we then ended up changing the business totally, and then basically renting them out as a recruitment company to our competitors fundamentally.
Yeah. Can I just touch on that quickly? So like the emotional stress that you must have gone through like during that phase where it's like, because obviously you've got this big wave where everything's going really well. Like, it must be bloody exciting, mate. You know, you get...
Yeah, but we didn't earn it, really. So basically, you had a perfect storm of two very ambitious people that were quite bright, that had the... So my job was to go out and get work. The delivery of it, I didn't even care. I was go out and fill the order book. I filled the order book, and Richard's experience was delivering it, but from a commercial... He was in a layer of management that delivered the project, but there was a lot of other aspects of that business. And I'll give you an example. For we had at one point in time 20 machines. I'm talking big machines on site. Our bill was 50-60 grand a month of these machines, and it was at a point where we laughed one day, because one of those machines, we could have bought that cash in the end, the amount of money we gave to the hire company. So if we would have bought that for a finance deal, put it in another business and just paid it off, when we hit financial difficulty, we'd have had an asset base to lend against to actually finance the... and a lot of the businesses now that exist out there locally that do incredibly well, that are kind of household names now, that's what they did. But where we were growing so quickly, we didn't have time. Job starts Monday, where are we going to get disc cutters from? Well, I don't know, phone up. We haven't got the 500 quid times 10 disc cutters. Let's just hire them for speed. It's only £10 a week. But what happened was, as you kept growing, you found that actually that disc cutter's been there for 6 months.
We could have any assets.
Yeah. What was getting worse was where we were so unorganised. You'd clear a job, we'd go to give 10 disc cutters back to Speedy, and 4 had gone. So not only had you paid a year and a half for the disc cutter that you could have bought 6 months earlier, you've then got to pay Speedy for the retail price of the disc cutter that you lost. So clearing the site for us was horrendous, because the massive bills just came out in the end. Whereas if it was your own disc cutter, you'd lay it off early on against the job and just keep reusing it. So assets in a business, that became really important. And actually, when we lost everything and we started brand new with a new business, and we basically started from scratch, the agreement was, let's just keep this nice and small, nice and simple, like a recruitment business. Let's rent them out, and Liam, you go off and you just go and find stuff to buy. So we're going to focus on hitting that benchmark. Let's kick out a few quid and let's just go and buy stuff. And we got into student housing, basically. So I then detached fundamentally from the cash cow, which was what we were doing new, and everything that was available to us, and we stretched ourselves all the time, was to acquire more properties. And then it was kind of compounded, because then people would rent them, they'd then give us more money, so then you get them cheap, you get money in assets for doing them up, and then you get paid until you sold them. And over here the business didn't really change. We smashed the vans in, we run everything on a shoestring. We had a couple of us in an office, and that fed that, and that happened for about maybe 4 years. And we got involved in a tax business that did quite well alongside that. So fundamentally, in that period of our life, we'd gone from losing everything and realising we weren't bulletproof to going, hang on a minute, let's try and do this again, but let's build some assets around us to enable us to not stress too much every night.
But also sounds like now that obviously your eggs all aren't in all in one basket, right?
Diversification is massive, because I remember one of the things I really remember is when we were contracting, we had about 60 people out on site, 60, 70 people out on site. And I remember someone bounced a check on us and bearing in mind we've got 60 ground workers, they'll come and smash your face in. Do you know what I mean? And when it's going well, you don't consider that at all, but actually it all becomes very real. And I remember someone bounced a check on us, and we needed that to pay the wages. And I remember going to my own bank, and bearing in mind the business is turning over 100 grand a week, like £500,000 a month, and I can't even buy myself a sandwich, because what we ended up doing is lagging the payments on these to pay these, and that 50 grand check, it didn't feel like money in the end. It was just, can I move that quickly to there?
Wow.
And they bounced it on us, and I can't remember how we got through it, but we kind of muddled through. But I remember sitting on a bench outside the office and going, this ain't for me. Like, I don't even know what am I doing here. Like, this is crap. This isn't fun anymore. And that was it. And when we went to see administrators, it was like, don't get me wrong, it was awful after that. And any administration experience, like, that's not fun. That is really, they pull your family into it, they pull your assets into it and everything. Yeah, it's very messy. So you're a limited company, of course, but yeah, it's pretty scary stuff. But commercially, it's the first night I slept, right? Because you're just like, my God, I haven't got tomorrow, the phone's ringing. Literally, we walk in that office and the phone's ringing, people chasing your money all the way through. And but actually looking back, it's a brilliant experience. Like, it's a brilliant. And a lot of people in the pandemic, like, I think the pandemic's been a real eye opener for really great businesses to actually understand the basics and to rethink about.
Absolutely right. Yeah.
So just back a little bit there. I think there's a real common misconception. You said something about there how they pull your family. I don't want to dwell too much on the negatives, but about a limited company there, because I think there's a misconception that a limited company, you're protected from everything. So was that not the case?
Well, I think it's even more not the case now. So many years ago, before like this situation, limited was limited.
Yeah.
The problem is when you're growing, security gets asked of you, particularly if you're growing beyond. So you're asking for 100 grand, but your business is turning over 200 grand, and people go, "Well, I'm growing." Yeah, but you are a massive risk. And what you end up doing, because your belief in your product and what you offer is so great, you will sign anything. You'll sign literally your life away. And a lot of business don't understand the importance. A PG is a PG. Like, it's not going away. And actually, the reason they ask for it, and I've seen it more lately. Actually, it was a bit looser then, but years ago it was like limited company, chuck it, and you hear these stories where you just start up tomorrow.
Yeah.
And we had some real issues, like so. For example, I don't want to dwell too much on it, but the recruitment business. Oh, you're in the same industry, and you bought your dad out. Hang on a minute, that doesn't all quite work out. And explaining all that sort of, no, it's a different business. People go, oh, we shut tomorrow. That's fine if that's your only revenue stream. You've not got any other homes, other things to be. And you see a lot of these businesses, oh, they just started tomorrow. But did they? Actually, they probably put the name in their relative's name. There's a lot of balancing. And actually, when you look at business, the best business is the most efficient. And any handbrake you introduce, it's in your wife's name. For example, that potentially is another reason we couldn't get a bank account then, we couldn't get an overdraft because we've got a history of voluntary arrangements and all that stuff. All of this scorecard that you're creating on your journey affects you longer term. And one of the things that we were very lucky was we didn't need to declare ourselves. I didn't have anything, so there was nothing to tape, so we didn't have to declare personal bankruptcy. But I mean, to be bankrupt and to start another business is a nightmare. An absolute nightmare. You can't do it. It's really hard to do. And actually now with technology and stuff, I see stuff now, people are starting asking for PGs for crazy stuff now. Like, and years ago they didn't ask for that stuff.
There's PGs and everything these days. Literally. Absolutely everything.
Even leased offices and stuff like that. Like, the amount of security they're looking for now is incredible. And I think it's the right thing. But there has to be a balance to allow people to take risks, to force the economy forward, and there has to be something. But I think I don't think you ever, and actually there's a tipping point between owning you believe in your business until you don't, and you'll sign anything until you don't believe in it, and it tends to be the guarantees piece is when someone's been, oh no, I wouldn't sign that. And I got involved in that on the lease when you were with the kitchen franchises. Like, they'd sign anything because they'd never been scorned before. But the ones that had been scorned, hang on a minute, what's this? You want 5 years out of me? Hang on a minute. So it's
So just taking all of that, and if you had to bundle it into like a few pieces of advice to someone starting out today, no experience, going limited, etc. Like, whether it's in any industry, like, is there any kind of highlight tips in terms of like do this, don't do that. Like,
there's a real urge for everybody to do everything quickly. There's an urgency that I see more now even than then.
That's true.
And I actually think you need to do everything in stages. And I think that one of the key takeaways is what we didn't do is, what is this all about? Why are we doing it? Right, let's put that into the middle and work back from there. So me and Richard, we didn't want a £5 million. We never sat down and said we want a £5 million business. But if we would have done, then we probably would have plotted our journey slightly differently. We didn't never once say in 3 years we can get to 5 million turnover. We just got there. And I think a lot of businesses, I think what you've got to do is cast your line out really as far as you want to go and work back. And obviously I'm the same as you guys. Like, I work businesses all the time. 90% of businesses start a business through passion. They want a kitchen shop, and they don't actually know why they want it or what the objective is. And I think passion, you have to apply the fundamentals commercially to passion.
Yeah. It's interesting what you say there about everything moves so quickly in terms of urgency of wanting to grow. Because I think one thing that me and Chris picked up last year was, like, I think it was around, actually funny, this time last year, we were growing really quickly. I remember having a conversation with you, like, how's it going? Yeah, it's good, it's going. It's like we've got too many clients we can really handle at the minute. And it got to one point where almost like the excitement of all these new clients saying yes and signing online with us, me and Chris looked at each other one day in the office, we were like, we've got to slow down. We've got to slow down. We're gonna either A, overextend, or B, the quality of service is going to dip so much that they're going to leave anyway. And I think it's one of the best decisions, because sometimes you've got to slow down to speed up again.
Yeah, and I think just to kind of, the other thing as well, that's all a conscious decision, right? But the other thing is, a business is a commodity that you own that releases fun tokens to you as a person. That's all it is. It's a commodity. And the challenge you get is that even when you're saying we've got to slow down, well, why have you got to slow down? Because where you need to tell me where you're going to. Because if you went out for a run and you were going to run 5 miles, you'd know roughly how fit you are to assess that 5 mile period. What you're saying is we've got to slow down, and I'm saying to you, well, how far are you running? I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, maybe the finish line's just there. Maybe you've got to speed up. And I think the challenge is that when you go for a run, you say, right, tonight I'm going to run 5 miles, and I know roughly to do that I need this amount of time to do it because I can run this fast. 99% of small businesses, and what tends to happen is the really successful entrepreneurs, and I'm not one of them, the really successful entrepreneurs, they get this journey very early on in their experience, and it becomes productized in their mind that they apply to the next methodology and the next methodology. So when investors dial in to buying shares, if you've done it before, you are way more attractive to an investor than somebody that's never done it before, because once you get that X amount of pounds, there's a beginning, middle and end to your journey. And 99% of businesses that I come across, there is no end because they're so passionate about it. And that's the problem. So it's absolutely right to slow down. What are you slowing down for? And I know we've spoken, and you guys are doing incredibly well. And if we sat here now, it'd take hours to get out of you what the end product is, because it isn't for really entrepreneurial people. It's not about money. Yeah. So if I wrote a check there, you whatever amazing, incredible, you'll wake up tomorrow and go, what are we doing now? And there'll be a fear against what the unknown. This journey that you're on now is so embedded to your personality, and I think the skill is that when you begin on your journey is to set yourself some personal goals of what that can deliver you. It's not about, and the other thing I'd say is, fuck income. Like, you live to your means, right? And actually, when you get more money beyond a certain thing, it's irrelevant anyway. It's about how that slots into your journey personally and how you want to live your life. And because there'll be other denominators in there where, if you don't know where you're going, you're not going to control that beast to suit the rest of your life. And I know loads of people that have sold their business the next day, they fucking don't know what to do with themselves.
Yeah, we see it a lot.
Yeah.
We see it a lot. But then that's the other thing on the flip side of that. It's like, when you talk about exit plans and growing a commodity and driving the value in there, I think it all ties into, like, when we say, right, there's got to be an end point, but it's interesting because I'm just literally devil's advocate to it. I've met people who've exited, and mate, sometimes they're the most depressed people I've met in my life. because they've got millions in the bank. They can't physically spend it because they've lived their life to a certain level in terms of they've had a nice car but it's never been too nice, and my 5-bed house is more than enough where it is, etc. And the cash is sat there, they don't even to themselves. So it's also working out the balance between planning beyond those significant moments. Because it's back to that, we talked about Daniel Priestley the other day. He's got that graph where it's you've got the wilderness 0 to 3, 4 employees. Then you've got that lifestyle section where you go from 4 to 12, I think it is. And it's where you can probably pay yourself quite a significant amount, but what happens in there? Then you've got the desert where you're deciding you're going from lifestyle to performance, where you become basically a beast, where it's 49, 50 employees plus. It's and I suppose what I'm getting to is when do you get off the treadmill? Do you know what I mean?
I think the key, even hearing you talk about it, and I think the other challenge is for everyone, including me, it's about how much that product business that you're creating, the commodity that you're creating, is emotionally connected to you as a person.
Yeah.
Because actually you're talking about all this, but you're still talking about yourself. Basically, so in my mind is what does brilliant look like as a bit? If I'm going to start this journey, if I'm going to make a pie, at the end of it, I'll get out the oven and it sits there, right? It's trying to define what does brilliant look like as a business. Now, if you go past that, and that's amazing and it all feels right, but at certain key points in the business, you've got to take a step back from and say, right, 3 years ago, we said we need to get to this point, certain amount of margin. These are our customers. This is our recurring revenue. This is our demographic. There needs to be, when you start out, some really fixed in marks in the sand. They can move, and you have to appreciate they're not your identity. They're not you. They're not who you go home to, your wife or your husband to. They're just a product. You're making a pie. And for me, when you build something like the business I'm in now, every decision is based on what that pie is. Because it's easy to go, we're not going to make that pie anymore, we're going to take all the filling out, we're going to change it and stuff like that. And something at the back of my mind's going, yeah, but we decided on that pie we were going to make. And I think serial entrepreneurs, they're not as compassionate as their identity connected to that pie. It has to be the best pie that they can produce, but it's going to get finished. Yeah. And when it gets finished, or it gets to the point where we feel we're going to finish it, we're going to change it, that's fine, but we're going to make something today, and it is what it is. And I'm not going to feel upset if it doesn't go my way. It's just something I'm gonna make.
Yeah.
And I think the challenge with small businesses, if organically, marketing businesses, and I know your guys' stories kind of yours has been more kind of organic, but marketeers create marketing businesses, so their passion becomes a business. Kitchen designers open kitchen shops. People that like coffee open coffee shops.
Yeah.
And I believe that you should have a passion for it, for sure. And my current project, my biggest next
words out of my mouth. So do people that like co-working spaces?
No. So I sat the other day with my wife and I went, I've created an absolute vanity project. I'm sitting here with my view and whatever. It's not advice because I've got no grounds to give advice, but it is a total vanity project. And
what's this? What's that?
Old Bond Store's a total vanity. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Because basically, I was excited by creating a place that people walked into and went, "Fucking know how to do this, don't you?" Yeah. And also a challenge in the system and all that sort of stuff. And you're going to have that, and I suppose you have to appreciate that. But really, serial entrepreneurs don't. They're not as tainted by their own emotions.
Yeah, but that's huge though. Just to be able to sit here and brutally look at yourself and be like, I've done this out of pure vanity. That's huge, because some people they can't be that honest with themselves. If that makes sense. But then talk to me about Old Bonsai. So to anyone who doesn't know what it is, how would you summarise it? It's a
physical community space for business owners to add value to their businesses, to be around other businesses. I think I posted something on LinkedIn the other day.
You hate offices?
No, and we
don't ever talk to them about how much
I don't do.
You're paying because he will drill you.
No, it's
I'm joking.
It's a thing to think about.
Yeah, I know.
And I think what's weird is Old Bond Store was never that. Old Bond Store was never that. Old Bond Store originally was a business owner. What I found was when I was really in the weeds with the business, staff noise affects your judgment. So what I found was coffee shops, and I think before the pandemic the coffee shops started to fill up, but basically it was a load of people getting away from their wives or husbands. It was a load of people leaving their office, and coffee shops thrived. If you go to Whiteley, like the Starbucks out the front of an office where you can work is really busy because technology allowed us to do it. And the idea of going away and just going, right, I just need to think about that. And I was just finding I was more in the coffee shop out the front of our office than I was in the office. So what's the point in that? And I live in Southsea, so I think I started to regularly go to a certain coffee shop, and there was a person there that owned quite a big successful business. There was someone over there who's very successful, and we formed this little community. And I think the bit that I love talking to you guys, and this is the vanity, go back to the vanity, right? I love being around people that have got a can-do attitude. I gravitate towards it. It's a natural thing. I can't understand why you just want to exist. Why are you not pushing and pushing and pushing? And when you're a business owner, especially with like your wife wants to know but she doesn't want to know when it's not going well. I don't want to know. And then your mates are going, well, you've done all right. Like all you do is talk about money. So you end up with no one in your ecosystem that is actually aligned emotionally and actually an interest. To me, business is a sport. Like, and the scorecard is that there are people that, and if you. The most successful people treat it like that. And for me, it was about curating a place where we could all sit down and just grow our businesses organically together, but pull on little bits of advice. I mean, we're working together on a couple of bits. But that wasn't because you came to me and said, I wanted, it's just we get to know each other. Tell me about that stuff. So I wanted to create a physical space for people to disappear out of their offices, turn up at our point, and like the Silicon Valley effect, we all sit there and compound our ideas. And the methodology was that when I was going to that coffee shop, I was working there.
Yeah.
So you can go to a networking event, right? But you're not going to develop a relationship instantly for a networking event. It's going to take time. And the other bit that was important to me was getting to know the person behind the opinion. So if we created this social space where they could all come to work, they'd give me loads of money and it'd be game over. And then that was just before COVID. We opened in November, and then obviously COVID hit, and we closed with, I don't know, 5-6 members. And one of the strategies of Old Bonsai was, if we're going to create value, we have to protect the ecosystem so that there's a high hurdle in front. So when people come over, they're emotionally and commercially invested in making it work. So it would have been very easy to transactionally sell the product to other people, sell it for weddings and all the other stuff. But I was like, no, that person that comes through the door, and the 8 people that we got early on, they absolutely nailed why it existed. There was reasons that they wanted to be there. The problem was that it was an additional cost that they weren't used to paying. Yeah. And also, the people that needed it the most were too busy elsewhere so we were a kind of like, you know, like the 5-minute abs on QVC. Yeah. If they give me money, they're going to have 5 minutes ab, but fundamentally, they're not actually eating very well. So there's loads of broken things over there. So what we found was we acquired customers, and they were on that journey, but after 4 or 5 weeks, off they went, and they went back to their problems and stuff like that. So I had no intention of talking about offices or anything like that. It was a different spend. It was an emotional spend. And at that point, I must have thought, like, shit, like, this isn't... I knew there were people because we had 8 customers, but the idea of acquiring more customers on that journey wasn't going to work. So COVID hit, and everyone... and what was strange about COVID was a couple of weeks later. So we shut during COVID, March. And we didn't shut because we had to, legally, but we just didn't have any customers. So when the furlough money came in, we were like, well, might as well just take furlough money, because we can't afford to keep it open. But what happened was, with those 8 customers, 3 of them, about 2 weeks in, messaged me and said, we're thinking about our office now, and we're thinking about our own situation. You are still going to be there at the other side of this, aren't you, when you reopen? And that was a bit to me like, hang on a minute, something's changing. And what you have to consider as well, before COVID, like, talking about remote work, hybrid and all this nonsense, this shit that they're talking about at the moment, like, to find that in the back page of some irrelevant magazine that's an industry specific thing, because you have to remember offices are driven by a narrative of people that sell and supply offices, so the narrative's going to be in a certain way. But as COVID kind of continued, and business, I think we spoke, business never stopped, we all carried on, people start to recognise their own what they needed and stuff, and those business owners that were there, and we just kept growing. Like we'd open, we'd have a real shit service because we weren't allowed to do certain things, and two more members. And one of the things I'm most proud of at that point, going back to my kitchen days, someone wants to give you some money for 2 months. No, you're not fucking giving us money for 2 months. 12 months. Well, we don't really. Okay, fine. Yeah. And that was hard, really hard, because the gap between what our costs, to put it in context, only 3 months ago, we actually got to the point where we're covering our costs.
Wow.
So everyone, I mean, today, we're absolutely buzzing in there.
Yeah.
Like literally the energy in the place. But we aren't making any money.
Yeah.
But what I love about it is we kept asking for the commitment from them on the buy-in to make sure that when they do join, they're on that journey. And I think you guys early on, I remember you got a weird message from you from miles away to go, right, we're ready.
Yeah.
And it takes time. And also the other challenge we've got as a business is we're the only game in town offering this service.
Yeah.
So we're not battling against a competitor. We're battling against someone's own mindset and what they want to consume from it.
I'll tell you the biggest thing I've taken from it, and I think I had a lot of head trash around like more established businesses. I always thought wrongly that like all they really care about is like their business, etc. And until like we started like dabbling and just going to OBS, and then I think my initial perception at the start was like they're all really tiny businesses, like startup kind of stage, because we've experienced that kind of before, like co-working spaces. I wouldn't actually describe it as co-working, because it's probably not that. But then
now work is work's the way we get you together.
Yeah.
So the other choice we'd have is to provide a networking event.
Yeah.
There's a function to offer you a gym.
Yeah.
And make it for business owners, maybe, I don't know. But the metric is just get you come here if you achieve nothing in that day, commercially or emotionally, but you've done a day's work.
Yeah. But the biggest thing for me was like, being sat at a table, speaking to some dude who I've never met, and just conversation all day. Turns out there's 28 staff in that person's business, and before I know it, I'm like, oh, well, what happened at employee 5, 8, where the challenges, where the hurdles, and before I know it, I'm getting coached, like, while I'm working. And then you've also, I don't know whether you realise you've done this or not, but you created this environment where it's happened by default in terms of people that you've attracted, where everyone generally wants everyone else to be doing really well. And as soon as someone is struggling with something, there's been times when I went to the bar like, oh yeah, because the thing is, it's back to that whole common analogy where it's like you go up to another business and how's things at the minute? Everyone's like, oh, I'm really busy. Like, what does busy actually mean, right? But like I sat at the bar once and I was like, oh yeah, but it's challenged at the minute, and there's I think there's 4 or 5 other MDs, a couple of guys in the recruitment company, etc. And mate, just literally for the next 15-20 minutes, we're like dissecting, coming up, right, we tried this, do that. And for me, like, versus what we pay you to be there, it's like no brainer.
And I think the other thing is I was talking to someone about it today. If you're in a business and you're worried about your sales tomorrow and a networking event's going to solve that, you're fucked anyway.
Yeah, for sure.
Don't bother.
Totally agree.
So where our sweet spot, there's a commercial decision. If you deal with ultimate startups, the customer that you're onboarding, the chances are statistically they're going to fail quicker. So early on, it was a deliberate decision that actually the lifetime journey of a customer that's 3 or 4 or 5 years in, they're more likely to give me money for a longer period, brutally speaking.
Yeah.
The bit is that when you're in that environment, and what I find is successful people are really inquisitive and they're consistently learning. So the people that you talk about that go, I can't believe they just told me this and this, it's because they're consistently learning new stuff. And the minute that they switch off, it's kind of like their development trail stops and their business starts to... So what we tend to find is our sweet spot is a business owner that's on a quick, fast journey, but they're really interested in outside influence. And they're not interested in outside influence to sell anything. They're looking for partnerships. They're looking to understand new stuff. They're looking to... And our job is just simply to facilitate those conversations, because one thing I do know is they wouldn't have those conversations outside of Old Bonsai because there aren't any.
Yeah.
Business owners are competing with each other all the time.
Yeah.
And you mentioned that desire to win. It's right, because when you've got something like that, I mean, a member pulled me yesterday and said, I just want to thank you. This is mental. I just want to thank you. You've basically turbocharged what I'm doing. And I said, I don't understand what you mean. I don't even understand who you've spoken to or anything. And he said, well, basically, I've had a couple of introductions that have gone on to other things. I've had a couple of bits of advice that have been game changing, and I just feel like I'm on the up. Like literally, this is, and he explained one or two of those, and I didn't even know they'd happened. I didn't even have a clue. But our job is not to over facilitate those conversations, because if you get the right people, you guys will sit there, and you will be there to try and learn new stuff, and it's just natural because that's how you're wired. And I've found successful people are naturally inquisitive. It's in their DNA to learn.
And just on that then, so to any kind of launch, because if I knew now back then what I know now, sorry, that's what I'm going for. Like the first thing, if I could jump in a time machine and talk to myself 5 years ago, you probably did the same. It's surround yourself with the right people, right? Yeah. Now, how do you find the right people when you don't know? So anyone listens to this, that's the piece of advice I would give. How do you find the right people?
So I like going to beach clubs and things like that, right? And my wife and that's like, why have you gone over there to talk to those people? Like, what? I'm just naturally inquisitive. Like I've had some incredible stories at beach clubs, and one of our members who's a very successful in their own right, like I met them in a queue in Dominican Republic, and I think you just tend to, so you need to put yourself in environments where you're learning.
Yeah.
And I think the minute you're in a room and you're the smartest person in the room, you're wasting your time, really. You need to keep putting yourself in those environments. And what I tend to find with successful people, they actively look for successful people. And the other challenge is how do you determine success?
Yeah.
Because is it a Lamborghini part-time? Maybe it is. But what I find is that success, I can sit now in front of a person at the beginning of their journey or at the end, but that desire and that knowledge and the way that they're doing stuff, you just learn it. And I suppose naturally the people in our place just gravitate. The way they consume is very similar. There's a synergy and alignment in who they mix with, personally, socially, but they're consistently pushing themselves. So I just think you need to find the right people and have the ability to understand when you're in a room, where is the value. And I was thinking about with networking events and stuff like that, because there's some really good ones and some other stuff, and it's very difficult to curate that natural. And the one thing we do as a business, we don't give a shit what your company's called. Like, who gives a fuck? Like, literally, you're Josh and Chris, and then once we get to know you, we go, oh, okay. And that's when the real magic happens, because you go, how did you do that? Like, and what did that happen and stuff like that? And what surprises people is those ultra successful people, they're really keen on sharing their knowledge. They're not, and I've had some crazy conversations and learnt some stuff. And we got an event on Tuesday, and a guy kind of like specialises in Bitcoin, and like, I know nothing about Bitcoin. I've got no Bitcoin, but I'm going to go there because I understand why it exists. I understand how it works. So you just find, and I think regional towns struggle to gather those groups. They exist everywhere. Yeah. But regional towns struggle because I think the easiest ROI to give me money is I promise you're going to get more money back, and I can't. I think our attitude is I can't determine if you're going to do that, and if you haven't done it by now, we can't fucking help. Yeah. But we can pair you up with someone else that is doing on a similar journey to you, and compounded. You're probably we've learned some great stuff off you guys, and likewise the other way.
Yeah. And so to anyone who's, I suppose you see starting out, so we've spoken about things we should be doing, i.e. surrounding yourself with the right people, but is there any kind of like crucial things? I know we spoke about like making sure we're building an actual understanding the business as a commodity. It's not, yes, be passionate, but I suppose detach yourself. Remember, I love that analogy, building a pie, by the way, you're cooking a pie, because that's bang on. But like, is there anything as well that you think that maybe if you could just jump in a time machine, tap yourself on the shoulder at age 27, what would you say? What would you be saying to yourself?
I think slow down a bit. Yeah, I think just slow down and just try to methodically work through stuff. And when it ever feels out of control, just have that ability. We've just been a talk, haven't we?
Yeah.
But having that ability to take a step back and realign that to what your own journey's like. Because one thing I know about really successful people is once you've got a fancy watch, you've got a fancy car, that isn't the goal. And actually making sure that methodically you go through the process. And the other thing I do advise to do not sit in a conversation where someone says something and you say yes when they say, do you understand? And you don't. People do that all the time.
Yeah, it's so
successful people don't do that.
Yeah.
Really successful people go, can I just stop you? I don't understand that. Someone said the other day about an NFT and like, which is something to do with Bitcoin. It's quite a complicated thing. And they were off the NFT and I went, whoa, stop. Tell me what an NFT is. And I have the confidence in yourself that knowledge can be learned. Stupidity is in just saying yes, really, because actually you don't know. And I think when I lost the business, I didn't surround myself. I just got a load of people that agree with me, and I didn't actually go out to the outer people that have done it. We get a lot in our industry as well. Like, so I don't know, you're a wealth management business. I don't want to be in there because other wealth managers are but they're fucking 10 times more successful than you are, right? So what I would say to the younger me is go and find a way of buying them dinner. because ultimately, if they are comfortable in their own skin, they'll happily receive the dinner. They might get some golden nuggets off you, but just go and learn why they're killing you, because they're killing you at the moment.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of regional thinking is we're all competitors, and I find that. Let's give an example. Wealth management, 67 million people in this, and they need 100 customers. What are the chances that they are, by them working together and learning off each other, that they're going to affect each other's businesses commercially, other than positively? How can it be a negative that? And I think with you guys, like, we've got other agencies, we've got other people in your world. If you're in there, surround yourself with them.
Yeah,
and measure yourself against them, and they'll be measuring themselves against you, and that's how you compound. And I keep always talking about the Silicon Valley effect. They talk about all what it is now, but it was a load of people in garages, and they go and meet and they talk and they learn shit, and it compounds. So if when you're younger, just immerse yourself with people that are on your radar. I saw Daniel Priestley at a talk a few weeks ago. We partner a business called Legacy Club. They've got Chris who runs it, and I was like, fucking hell, he's the real deal. Just the way he presented himself, the way he understood it. And if I was, would I see him as a competitor as well? No, absolutely not. I'd sit there and listen to him all day. And I think that's really, really important, because when they have that success, it's they're good, and you need to learn quickly off people like that.
Yeah. There you have it, guys. I think that there's so much information there, nugget. And do you know what? I would say, like, I'm learning that.
Yeah, but I think a lot of my, just as a caveat to that, a lot of my information is compounded by being around lots of really good people, not my own views. So if you'd have interviewed me 2 years ago, this is findings from 70 businesses on a daily basis doing good and bad things. So it's not just my I mean, I wish that I had the success that I could talk about. But
no, mate, it's been great. To anyone who's pretty Southampton based, who wants to find a bit more about our Bond store, is there any chances like I can get a day pass, etc.? I don't know.
No, there isn't.
No day passes, guys.
What we do is we're at the point now we're kind of vetting people coming in just to maintain the ecosystem and maintain the value. That's not elitist. What we try to do is to have a chat for an hour, just to try and understand what the objectives are, to see if we can help. And if you go on our website, oldbondstore.com, you'll see half the people that are members now, to get a feel for what we're dealing with. But on there's a register for information. We'll be back in touch. We'll either have a Zoom call or an hour chat, and then we'll take it from there.
Yeah, nice, awesome. Cheers, guys. Liam, thanks so much for your time.
Cheers,
guys. Wherever you get your podcast, subscribe, like, get your notifications, and we'll see you in the next one. Cheers.